She was just a maid, silent, gentle, and broken. He was a man the whole city feared, the kind of man who could make people vanish with a single phone call. Their worlds were never meant to collide, until one night, someone laid a hand on her. And the mafia boss stood up, his voice cold and deadly, and said, "Who touched you?" Minutes later, the entire city learned. She wasn't just his maid. She was the woman he'd burn the world for. This is the man who promised to burn the world for her. A story of love, revenge, and redemption in the darkest corners of power. Hold on before we begin, drop your country or city below. It's amazing seeing all of you from around the world. The scent of lemon polish clung to Elena Morris's hands as she scrubbed the marble floor of the Moretti mansion. Each wipe of her rag reflected the same image back at her: tired eyes, pale face, and a heart that refused to rest. She'd been there for only 3 months, but every day felt like walking on the edge of a blade. The mansion was huge, all glass, gold, and silence. The kind of silence that made you hear your heartbeat. No laughter, no voices, just the distant footsteps of armed men and the ticking of expensive clocks. No one here spoke much about their boss, Damien Moretti. They just called him the king. The kind of man who made other powerful men shake when his name was mentioned. Elena didn't want to know why. She didn't care who he really was. All she wanted was to clean, collect her pay, and go home to her 1-year-old daughter, Mila. That day, heavy rain hit the city, and thunder rolled across the sky like a warning. Most of the staff had gone home early. Elena was told to finish the dining hall, a room no one liked entering when Damien was in town. She worked fast, trying to finish before dark. But as she reached for a chair leg, a low voice stopped her. "You missed a spot." Her heart jumped. She turned quickly and froze. Damien Moretti was standing there. He looked exactly how the staff whispered about him: tall, sharp-featured, black hair combed back neatly, eyes so dark they almost looked empty. His white shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, showing strong forearms covered with faint scars. Elena swallowed hard. I'm sorry, sir. I'll clean it right away." Damien didn't reply. He walked toward her slowly, like a panther studying its prey. His shoes barely made a sound on the marble. When he stopped, he was close enough that she could smell his cologne, clean, masculine, and expensive. "Look at me when I'm speaking," he said softly. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It carried quiet power, the kind that made you obey before you thought. Elena hesitated, then lifted her gaze. His eyes pinned her. Cold, unreadable, but curious. "You're new to this room," he said. "Yes, sir. Mrs. Rosa is sick, so I'm covering for her." He nodded slightly, then looked around the shining table that stretched across the room. "You clean well," he said. "Better than most." Elena blinked in surprise. She wasn't used to compliments, not from anyone, and definitely not from men like him. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. He studied her face for a moment longer, his gaze lingering on the faint bruise on her wrist, the one she'd covered with makeup. "How long have you been here?" he asked. 3 months, sir. Before that, I worked in a hospital." Something flickered in his eyes, a mix of curiosity and calculation. "A nurse. You gave up that job to clean floors." Her stomach tightened. He'd found out more about her than she'd told anyone. "Life changes," she said quietly, gripping the rag tighter. "Yes," he murmured. "Sometimes it does." The silence stretched. Elena could feel her pulse racing. She needed to leave, but his presence rooted her to the spot. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. One of his men, tall, bald, wearing a black suit, stepped into the room. "Boss," the man said, nodding respectfully. "Marino's here. Says it's urgent." Damien's expression shifted, hardening. "I said no visitors today," he insisted. Damien exhaled slowly, the air in the room turning heavy. "Fine. I'll deal with him. You," he turned to Elena, "stay here. We're not done." "Sir, But he was already walking away. The doors closed behind him with a soft thud. Elena let out a shaky breath and grabbed her cleaning things. She didn't want to stay here. She didn't want any attention from the man whose name could silence an entire city. She was halfway to the exit when the door opened again. This time, it wasn't Damien. It was Marino, a heavy-set man with slicked-back hair and a gold chain that glinted against his chest. He smiled when he saw her, a slow, unpleasant smile. Well, he drawled. The king's got a new maid. Elena froze. I was just leaving. He stepped closer, blocking her path. No rush. Haven't seen you before. What's your name, sweetheart? Elena, she said quietly. Please, I have work to finish. He chuckled and reached out, brushing his fingers along her arm. Pretty name. Pretty girl. Elena stepped back, heart pounding. Don't touch me. Relax, he said, smirking. Just being friendly. Before she could reply, another voice cut through the air, cold and deadly. Who touched you? Damien stood in the doorway. The silence was electric. Even the rain seemed to pause outside. Marino's smirk faded instantly. Boss, it's not what it looks like. Damien walked toward him slowly, his eyes locked on Elena's trembling form, then on the red mark on her wrist. I asked you a question, he said softly. Who touched you? It was nothing, Elena said quickly. I'm fine, sir. It wasn't nothing, Damien replied without looking at her. His voice stayed calm, but something dangerous coiled beneath it. Angelo, he called. The bodyguard stepped forward immediately. Take Mr. Marino outside, Damien ordered. Explain to him the cost of touching what isn't his. Marino paled. Damien, she's just a maid. And you, Damien interrupted coldly, are a dead man walking if you ever come near her again. He turned to Elena, his tone softening slightly. Go to your quarters. You're done for today. Elena hesitated, shaken. Thank you, sir. As she hurried out, she heard Damien's voice behind her, calm, deliberate, and final. Next time someone touches my maid without permission, make sure he never uses his hands again. The doors shut, muffling the sound that followed. That night, word spread through the mansion like wildfire. By morning, every staff member knew one thing. The boss's maid was untouchable. Elena couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Damien's face, the fury that wasn't directed at her but for her. Why? Why had he reacted that way? He barely knew her. She was nobody, just a maid, a ghost hiding in plain sight. At dawn, she got out of bed and checked on her daughter. Little Mila slept peacefully, one tiny hand wrapped around her favorite stuffed bear. That sight alone gave Elena strength to face another day. By noon, she was back in uniform, avoiding eye contact with the guards and other maids who whispered as she passed. That's her, one of them whispered. The boss's girl. No wonder he fired Marino's entire crew last night. Elena wanted to scream that it wasn't true, that she wasn't his girl. But rumors in the Moretti mansion were like smoke. Once they started, they filled every room. She was wiping down the library shelves when the door creaked open again. You really should learn to rest when you're told to. She turned sharply. Damien leaned against the doorframe, his jacket gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up. I couldn't, she stammered. There's still work. Sit, he said simply. She froze. Sir, I can't. That wasn't a request, Elena. Hearing her name from his mouth startled her. She'd never told him it. Slowly, she set down her cloth and sat on the edge of a chair near the fireplace. He moved closer, studying her face like he was trying to read her thoughts. You're frightened, he said. Should I not be? She replied, forcing her voice steady. Yesterday, a man got hurt because of me. Damien poured himself a drink from the crystal decanter on the table and spoke without looking at her. He got hurt because he forgot who he was dealing with. Not because of you. But still. You think you caused this? He turned to her now, eyes sharp. You didn't. You're not responsible for other people's choices. His words hit deeper than she expected. For years, she had blamed herself for the bruises, for the fear, for staying too long. You don't know what it's like, she whispered. To be scared every time a man raises his voice. To wonder if you'll make it through another night. Something in Damien's expression softened. He set his glass down and sat opposite her. Actually, he said quietly, I do. Elena frowned. You. He nodded, looking into the fire. My mother used to look just like you when she was scared. Small. Silent. Waiting for the next storm. Her breath caught. He didn't elaborate, and she didn't ask. But in that moment, the distance between them shrank, not completely, but enough for her to see the humanity behind his reputation. He stood, straightening his cufflinks. From now on, you work directly under me. I don't trust anyone else around you. Elena blinked. Sir, that's not necessary. It is, he said firmly. I don't like repeating myself. Before she could reply, he was already walking toward the door. Dinner, he said suddenly, pausing without turning. What? 8 o'clock. My dining room. Wear something nice. Sir, I can't have dinner with you. I'm just a maid. He turned his head slightly, a ghost of a smile on his lips. Not anymore. And then he was gone. That evening, Elena stood before her mirror, staring at the reflection of a woman she barely recognized. She wore a simple black dress borrowed from one of the staff closets. Her blonde hair, once dull and lifeless, fell in soft waves over her shoulders. She didn't look like a maid. She looked like someone pretending to be brave. When she arrived at the dining room, Damien was already there. He'd changed into a black shirt, no tie this time, and the top buttons undone. He looked almost casual, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. You came, he said. I didn't think I had a choice. You didn't, he replied simply, then gestured to the seat across from him. Sit. The table was smaller tonight, set for two with candles flickering between them. I don't understand why I'm here, Elena said, sitting carefully. You will, Damien replied. Eat. He poured wine into her glass. She shook her head. I don't drink. Good. I prefer clear minds around me. They ate in silence for a few minutes before he spoke again. Tell me the truth, Elena. Who are you running from? Her fork froze midway to her lips. I don't know what you mean. You do, he said calmly. You don't hide your fear well. You change your name, take a job far below your skill, never go out, never make friends. You're not hiding from life. You're hiding from someone. Elena's pulse pounded. You've been watching me. I watch everyone under my roof, he said evenly. It's how I keep them alive. She hesitated, then whispered, if I tell you, will you use it against me? He leaned forward, his voice low but steady. I don't hurt people who tell me the truth. Her throat tightened. The words came out before she could stop them. His name is Ethan Cole. He was my fiancé. I left him after he hurt me. He's powerful. Dangerous. And he's looking for me. Damien's jaw tightened, his eyes darkening. Does he know you have a child? Yes, she whispered. And he'll never stop until he gets her. For a long moment, Damien said nothing. Then, quietly, he spoke. Then he'll have to go through me. She stared at him, stunned. Why would you do that for me? He stood, walked around the table, and stopped beside her chair. Because no one protected my mother, he said softly. And I swore that if I ever saw it happen again, I'd burn the world before I let another man touch what's mine. Elena's heart raced. I'm not yours. Not yet, he said. But from this moment, you're under my protection. That night, Elena lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. The mansion was quiet, but inside her mind, chaos reigned. She didn't trust him. She didn't even understand him. But for the first time in years, she felt safe. And deep down, she knew the moment Damien Moretti said those words, the city itself had shifted. Someone had touched his maid. And for that, he was ready to burn the world. The rain had stopped, but the night air still smelled of thunder and danger. Elena sat across from Damien Moretti at the long mahogany table, her hands resting stiffly in her lap. She didn't belong here under the soft chandelier light, with porcelain plates and crystal glasses sparkling like stars. She belonged behind the table, not at it. Damien sat with the calm of a man who owned not only the house but the air around it. He studied her with those dark, watchful eyes as if he could see straight through the walls she'd built to survive. You're not eating, he said, his voice low and smooth. I'm not very hungry, Elena replied quietly. That's because you're scared. She looked up sharply. His tone wasn't mocking, it was factual, almost gentle. Still, it made her skin prickle. "I'm not scared," she lied. "Yes, you are," he said. "You've been scared since the day you arrived." Elena lowered her gaze. The truth was exhausting to hide. She was tired of pretending, tired of holding herself together with silence. "You said earlier you know about my past," she said after a moment. "How?" "I make it my business to know who enters my house," Damien said. "Your resume was clean, but your name wasn't. You've used at least 3 identities in the past year. That tells me you're hiding." Her heart thudded painfully. "You've been investigating me?" He leaned back in his chair. "I investigate everyone. But you," he paused, his gaze narrowing slightly, "you're different. You ran from someone. Someone dangerous." Elena swallowed hard. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." She looked up then, meeting his gaze fully for the first time. What she saw there startled her, not pity, but understanding. It made her chest ache. "His rich," she began slowly. "My ex Ethan Cole. His father runs a massive construction empire. Everyone calls them the perfect family, clean, respectable. But her voice trembled. "He's not what he seems." Damien didn't interrupt. He just listened, his jaw tightening as she spoke. "At first, he was perfect. Kind. Charming. Then he started controlling everything, what I wore, who I talked to, when I came home. If I disagreed, he'd apologize. The next time, he'd break something. Then it was me." Her throat closed. She forced herself to continue. "When I got pregnant, he said the baby would fix everything. It didn't. It made him worse. The night I left, he pushed me down the stairs." The words hung in the air like smoke. Damien's face didn't move, but the muscles in his jaw flexed once, hard. He set his glass down carefully. "He's looking for you," he said quietly. "Yes. He has money, connections. He'll never stop until he finds us." For a moment, the only sound was the faint clink of rain dripping from the gutters outside. Then Damien spoke again. "You won't run anymore," he said. "You'll stay here." Elena stared at him. "What?" "You heard me. You and your daughter will stay in this house. I'll protect you." Her pulse quickened. "Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." "Because you remind me of someone I couldn't save," he said simply. The words silenced her. She didn't know what to say. Didn't know if she could trust him, but she knew he meant it. "I can't just hide here," she whispered. "If Ethan finds out where I am." "Then we make sure he doesn't," Damien interrupted. "And if he does," his eyes darkened. "Then we make sure he regrets it." There was no threat in his voice, just quiet certainty. The kind that came from a man used to making things happen. He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the table. "Tell me something, Elena. What would you give to make sure your daughter grows up free?" "Anything," she said without hesitation. "Everything." "Good," he said softly. "Then you'll do exactly as I say." The next morning, Elena woke to a quiet knock on her door. A maid entered, carrying a garment bag and a small jewelry box. "From Mr. Moretti," the maid said. "He requests your presence at the office after breakfast." Elena frowned. "Why?" "He said you'll understand." She didn't, but she went anyway. When she entered Damien's private office, the first thing she noticed wasn't the towering bookshelves or the skyline view, it was him. Standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly tousled. Power clung to him like a second skin. He ended the call as she entered and turned toward her. "You look rested," he said. "Good. What is this about?" she asked. "Sit." He gestured to the chair across his desk. She sat, tense and uneasy. "Ethan Cole's family has been trying to buy influence in this city for months," Damien began. "Politicians. Lawyers. Even one of my business partners." Elena's stomach twisted. "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything," he said. "Your ex is moving against me. And that makes you a target for him, and for my enemies." She blinked. "I don't understand." He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "If the city believes you belong to me, No one will dare touch you. Not even Ethan. Her breath caught. Belong to you? We'll make it look like you're my fiancé. Her mouth fell open. What? A fake engagement, he said calmly. You'll live here, publicly as my partner. Privately, nothing changes. You'll have your daughter, your space, your freedom. But to the world, you'll be mine. Elena's head spun. You can't be serious. I don't joke, Elena. Especially not about protection. She stood up, pacing. This is insane. What will people say? What if Ethan finds out? That's the point, Damien said. He will find out. And he'll back off, because he knows no one crosses me and survives. His tone was calm, but the truth in it was terrifying. You can't use me like some cover story, she snapped, fear and anger blending in her voice. He rose too, towering over her. You think this is about me, he said sharply. This is about you. About your daughter. If Ethan finds you on your own, he'll destroy you. But if he thinks you're mine, he'll never get close. She stared at him, torn between disbelief and something else, something dangerously close to trust. Why are you doing this? She whispered. He looked at her for a long time before answering. Because I made a promise once, he said. Never again will a woman under my protection bleed while I'm still breathing. The next evening, Elena stood in front of a mirror in a room she hadn't entered before, the mansion's dressing suite. A silk gown of deep emerald hugged her body perfectly, its fabric flowing like water when she moved. Her hair, styled in soft waves, shimmered under the chandelier light. She didn't recognize herself. When the door opened, Damien entered, dressed in a black tuxedo. He paused when he saw her. For a moment, he said nothing. You look, his voice trailed off, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. Perfect. Elena turned toward him, trying to calm the wild beating in her chest. You said this was just a cover. Why go this far? Because appearances matter, he said. If we're going to lie, we'll do it convincingly. He stepped closer, holding a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, a large emerald surrounded by diamonds. It glowed under the light, impossibly beautiful. You can't be serious, she whispered. This will keep them away, he said quietly, sliding it onto her finger. No one questions what belongs to me. The words made her skin prickle, not from fear, but something she didn't understand. Power. Possession. Protection. They all tangled together in her chest. This feels wrong, she murmured. So did running, he replied. But you did it anyway. She looked up at him. His eyes softened. You'll be safe tonight, he said. That's all that matters. The gala was held at the Grand Verano Hotel, marble floors, golden chandeliers, and a crowd of people who smiled with their mouths but never with their eyes. As their car pulled up, Damien's driver opened the door. Cameras flashed instantly. They're expecting you, Damien said quietly, stepping out first. He turned, offering his hand. Stay close to me. When Elena stepped out, the noise intensified. Reporters shouted questions, flashes burst like lightning. Mr. Moretti, who's the mystery woman? Is she your new fiancé? When's the wedding? Damien didn't answer. His arm slipped around her waist, firm and possessive, guiding her up the red-carpeted stairs. Smile, he murmured near her ear. You're the envy of every woman here. She tried. Her lips curved slightly, though her heart raced. She could feel his warmth beside her, steady, unshakable. Inside, the ballroom was all crystal and silk, laughter echoing under chandeliers. Damien nodded to people as they approached, businessmen, politicians, judges. Every handshake looked polite, but Elena could feel the tension underneath. You're doing well, he whispered. Just keep your chin up. Easy for you to say, she muttered back. You actually belong here. So do you. They just don't know it yet. Then his tone shifted. His here, he said softly. Your ex. Elena froze. What? Don't look, Damien murmured. His across the room. He sees you. Her breath caught. The world around her blurred. She felt Damien's hand tighten at her waist. Breathe, he said quietly. You're safe. She nodded faintly. He turned her slightly, guiding her toward the bar and toward the man she had spent months running from. Ethan Cole stood among a group of executives, drink in hand, smile polished to perfection. He looked exactly the same, handsome, confident, dangerous. When he saw her on Damien's arm, the smile froze, then vanished. Damien's voice was smooth as glass. "Mr. Cole," he greeted. "A pleasure." Ethan blinked, recovering quickly. "Mr. Moretti," he said tightly. "I didn't expect to see you here." "You didn't expect to see her either, I imagine," Damien said, glancing at Elena. Ethan's gaze flicked to her. "Elena," he said softly. "I see you've found new company." "I found safety," she said quietly. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Safety? With him? He's a criminal. He's a protector," she said. "Something you never were." The people around them shifted uncomfortably, sensing tension. Damien smiled, a calm, cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Elena has agreed to be my wife," he said suddenly. The room fell silent. Ethan's face went pale. "What?" "We're engaged," Damien continued. "Announce it, gentlemen. The king is off the market." Cameras flashed. Whispers exploded around the room. Ethan's eyes darkened. "You can't be serious." "She's mine." That was when Damien's expression changed, his charm dropping, his voice turning deadly quiet. "She stopped being yours the moment you hurt her," he said. "And if you ever come near her or her daughter again, I'll make sure you disappear without a trace." Ethan's composure cracked. "You don't scare me." "You should," Damien said, stepping closer until they were inches apart. "Because unlike you, I don't make threats I don't intend to keep." For a long moment, no one breathed. Then Damien turned, offering his hand to Elena. "Shall we, my love?" he said. She took it, and together they walked away under the watching eyes of the city's elite. That night, by morning, every newspaper, every blog, every whispering voice had the same headline. "Damien Moretti engaged to unknown woman, the king has a queen." But inside the mansion, where the cameras couldn't reach, Elena sat alone, staring at the ring that sparkled on her hand. She whispered to herself, barely breathing the words. "What have I gotten myself into?" From the shadows of the doorway, unseen, Damien watched her for a long time. And under his breath, he murmured, "A war neither of us can walk away from." The morning after the gala, the mansion no longer felt the same. The air itself seemed heavier, filled with whispers, curiosity, and fear. Every staff member moved differently now, more careful, more respectful. Every glance at Elena carried a mix of awe and disbelief. The maid who had once scrubbed floors was now the boss's fiancée. Elena stood by her window, still wearing the emerald ring that gleamed like a quiet secret. It didn't feel real. It didn't even feel hers. Her phone buzzed. A message from Rosa, one of the housekeepers. "Don't go downstairs yet." Reporters outside. Like bees. Elena sighed, stepping away from the window. Cameras. Questions. Headlines. They'd been on every news channel since last night. Who is Elena Morris? The mystery woman who stole the Mafia King's heart. From maid to queen. None of them knew the truth, that it was all an illusion. A performance meant to keep a monster away. Still, the illusion was real enough to terrify her. A soft knock came at her door. "Come in," she said. It was Damien's assistant, a tall man in a grey suit, Luca Romano. His expression was calm but unreadable. "Good morning, Mrs. Moretti," he said lightly. She frowned. "I'm not Mrs. Moretti." "Not yet," he said with a smirk. "But everyone believes you are." He handed her a tablet. "The boss asked me to brief you on the day's schedule. You'll need to stay indoors for now. The press won't leave until he makes an official statement." "I didn't ask for this," she said softly. "None of us ask for what he decides," Luca replied. "We just follow orders." As he turned to leave, Elena asked, "Do you ever disagree with him?" He smiled faintly. "Every day. But people who argue with Damien Moretti don't always live long enough to win." Downstairs, the mansion was alive with noise. Guards at every door. Journalists shouting from the gates. The tension of a fortress on alert. Elena peeked from the balcony and saw Damien standing by the entrance, dressed in black, sunglasses shielding his eyes, reporters surrounding him like vultures. "Mr. Moretti, is it true you're getting married? How did you meet her? Is she involved in your business?" Damien raised a hand, and silence fell instantly. "Elena is not involved in my business," he said, his voice cold but measured. "She's a private citizen, and I expect the same privacy for her that you'd grant your own families. Anyone who crosses that line will deal with me directly." A few reporters gulped audibly. Cameras kept flashing. "When's the wedding?" someone dared to ask. A faint smirk crossed Damien's lips. "Soon." Then he turned, his gaze drifting upward, and for a fleeting second, his eyes locked on Elena watching from above. Even from that distance, she felt it, the power, the possession, the unspoken warning, "Don't run. You're safer here." That night, the mansion was quiet again. Elena couldn't sleep. She slipped into the nursery where little Mila was fast asleep, a nightlight glowing soft pink over her crib. The baby's tiny hand clutched the edge of a stuffed rabbit, her chest rising and falling peacefully. Elena smiled faintly. For that peace alone, she would endure anything. She turned and nearly jumped. Damien was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, watching silently. "You scared me," she whispered. "You scare easily," he replied. "Understandable. You've been through hell." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You did well today. I didn't do anything." "Exactly. You didn't panic. You didn't hide. That matters." Elena crossed her arms. "You think standing beside you makes me brave?" "No," Damien said simply. "I think surviving makes you brave." His tone softened as his gaze moved to the sleeping child. "She looks like you." Elena's lips trembled. "She's the only good thing I ever did." Damien hesitated, then reached into his pocket and handed her a small silver key. "What's this?" she asked. "A safe in my office. If anything ever happens to me, you open it. There's cash, passports, a phone, and numbers that will protect you and your daughter." "Why would anything happen to you?" He smiled faintly, not kindly, but knowingly. "Because I just declared war on men who don't lose gracefully." Elena's chest tightened. "You mean Ethan? Him? And his father?" He took a step closer, his presence filling the room like heat. "They'll come for you," he said. "They'll try to scare you, corner you, use your fear against you. Don't let them. You belong to my house now. No one touches you without going through me first." His words were firm, almost sacred. But what scared her most wasn't the threat, it was the way a part of her believed him. Days passed. The engagement rumors grew. The mansion filled with luxury dresses, floral samples, and invitations, props for the lie they'd created. Elena tried to keep out of the spotlight, focusing on Mila and helping the few servants who still treated her like a friend. But everywhere she went, she could feel eyes. Watching. Judging. Whispering. And sometimes, she swore she saw shadows move where they shouldn't. One night, while checking on Mila, she found a folded note on the baby's blanket. Her blood ran cold. "Nice ring. He won't keep you safe forever." Her hands trembled. She rushed out of the nursery, heart racing, and found Damien in his office, speaking with Luca. "Someone's been in my room," she gasped, handing him the note. He took it, reading it silently. His jaw flexed. "When?" "Just now." Mila was asleep. He was already on his feet. "Luca, lock down the house. No one leaves." "Yes, boss." Damien's gaze shifted to her. "Come with me." He led her through the hallways, checking each door himself, his fury controlled but visible. "You said this place was safe," she whispered. "It is," he said coldly. "Or it was, until someone forgot who they work for." They reached the security room, rows of screens showing every hallway, every corner. Damien's men watched nervously as he replayed footage. At 10:47 p.m., a shadow slipped past the nursery door. A man in staff uniform. Face hidden. "Find him," Damien said. "I don't care how long it takes." His voice was ice. No shouting, no rage, just a deadly calm that made the air freeze. He turned to Elena. You're moving rooms. From tonight, you stay upstairs, near me. That's not necessary. It is, he interrupted. They got too close. She wanted to argue but couldn't. His expression left no room for debate. And so, for the first time, she slept just 2 doors away from Damien Moretti. But even with guards outside, she couldn't shake the feeling that the walls themselves were watching. Elena woke to soft morning light filtering through the curtains and the faint scent of coffee drifting in. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe. Not completely, but enough to breathe again. She walked into the sitting room and froze. Damien was there, dressed in his usual dark suit, reading the morning papers. "You're up early," he said without looking up. "You're in my room," she said. "Correction," he murmured, flipping a page. "You're in my wing." She glared, though he didn't notice. "You don't knock." "You don't need knocking," he replied dryly. "You need security." Before she could retort, Luca entered with a tablet in hand. "We found him," he said. Damien looked up immediately. "Who?" "The man who left the note. He was one of the temporary guards. Formerly worked for the Coles security firm." Elena's stomach dropped. "Ethan sent him." Damien's jaw tightened. "Looks that way." "What did you do with him?" she asked quietly. Luca hesitated. Damien answered for him. "He won't bother you again." Something about his tone sent chills down her spine. She didn't ask further. She didn't want to know. That afternoon, Damien left for a meeting downtown. The mansion felt too big, too quiet. Elena wandered the halls, her footsteps echoing faintly on the marble floors. She stopped by a painting she hadn't noticed before, a woman with long dark hair and soft eyes, holding a young boy. The plaque beneath read, "Lucia Moretti, 1972 to 1989. "That's his mother," said a voice behind her. She turned to find Luca leaning casually against the doorway. "She was killed when Damien was 14, he said. "By his father." Elena stared at the painting, stunned. His father? Yeah. Marco Moretti. Old boss before Damien took over. Violent man. She tried to run away with Damien. He found them. Only one of them survived. Elena swallowed hard. He's never told me that. He doesn't tell anyone. But it explains a lot, doesn't it? Luca's eyes softened. He hates men who hurt women. It's why you're still breathing. That night, Damien returned late. Elena waited in the sitting room, heart pounding. She didn't know why, only that she wanted to see him. When he entered, he looked exhausted but alive. His tie loosened, his expression unreadable. "Long day?" she asked. "Long life," he replied, sinking onto the sofa. She hesitated, then sat across from him. The firelight flickered between them. "I saw your mother's portrait today," she said gently. He froze for a second, eyes darkening. "Luca talks too much. He only told me she was hurt." "I'm sorry." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, quietly, "She was my first lesson about love. It can protect you or destroy you. Sometimes both." Elena lowered her voice. "That's why you're helping me." "Maybe," he said softly. "Or maybe I just hate seeing history repeat itself." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "When I was a boy, I swore I'd never be like him. But power is a strange thing, Elena. You take it to protect, and before you know it, you become the thing you feared." She shook her head. "You're not like him." "Aren't I?" he asked bitterly. "Everyone obeys me out of fear. I control lives, end them when I must. Tell me that's different." "It is," she said firmly. "Because you still care who gets hurt." Their eyes met, fire against ice, light against darkness. Then, to her surprise, he laughed softly. A real laugh. "You're either brave or foolish, talking to me like that." "Maybe both," she said, smiling faintly. He reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You don't need to be afraid of me, Elena." Her pulse raced. "I'm not," she whispered. "Good," he murmured. "Because the things I'd do to keep you safe would terrify you." Their eyes held a silence heavy with everything neither dared to say. Finally, he stood. "Get some rest," he said softly. Tomorrow, everything changes. Why? She asked. He turned at the doorway, half in shadow. Because I'm done hiding you. If Ethan wants to play war, then he'll learn what real power looks like. And with that, he was gone, leaving Elena staring into the dying fire. Outside, thunder rumbled again, distant but steady. The war Damien promised was coming. And this time, it wouldn't be fought with words, but with blood, loyalty, and love neither of them had planned for. The storm hit the mansion at midnight. Wind howled through the trees, rain lashed against the glass, and thunder cracked across the dark sky like warning drums. Elena couldn't sleep. Every crash of thunder made her flinch. Mila slept soundly beside her crib, small and warm and innocent. But something about the night felt wrong. The house was too quiet. No voices. No footsteps from the guards in the hallway. Just silence. Then, she heard it. A sound like glass breaking, distant but real. Her heart froze. She pulled on a robe, grabbed Mila from her crib, and crept to the door. The hallway was empty. Too empty. Lightning flashed through the tall windows, illuminating the portraits along the walls, the faces staring back like silent witnesses. Then came another sound, muffled voices downstairs. Elena's breathing quickened. She moved slowly, hugging her daughter tight, the wooden floor creaking under her bare feet. She could hear them now, 2, maybe 3 men. Not the usual guards. Their voices were wrong. Too sharp. Too fast. The boss says grab the woman and the kid. In and out. What about Moretti? He's gone. Won't be back until morning. Elena's blood turned to ice. They were here for her. She darted into a nearby room, a guest suite, and locked the door. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought they'd hear it through the walls. Mila whimpered softly, sensing her mother's fear. Sure, baby, Elena whispered. Please, not now. She reached for her phone, but it wasn't there. She'd left it charging on her bedside table. The footsteps grew louder, climbing the stairs. Then, bang! The sound of a door being kicked open. They were searching room by room. Elena backed into the corner, clutching her daughter as the footsteps neared. Room 5. Room 6. Room 7. Her door was room 8. Her eyes darted to the window. It was pouring rain outside, the wind shrieking. The ground was 2 stories below. If she jumped, she might survive. But with Mila in her arms. The door handle turned. She held her breath. The lock rattled. Then another loud crash. The door burst open. A man in a black mask stepped in, flashlight cutting across the room. Elena screamed as he lunged. But before he could reach her, gunfire. 3 sharp, deafening cracks filled the air. The man fell, motionless. And behind him, framed in the doorway like a dark angel, stood Damien Moretti. Rain clung to his hair, his shirt half soaked, his gun still smoking. His face was pure fury. I told you, he said coldly, no one touches her. He crossed the room in 2 strides, wrapping his free arm around Elena and pulling her close. Are you hurt? No, she stammered, trembling. But Mila. She's safe, he said firmly. I've got you. He turned, still holding them both, and barked into his earpiece. Luca, sweep the house. I want everyone accounted for. Find the others and make them talk. Already on it, boss. Elena buried her face in his chest, shaking. His shirt was cold and damp, but his heartbeat was steady. Solid. For the first time, she realized how terrifying and comforting it was to be protected by a man like him. They spent the rest of the night in his room. Damien refused to leave her side. Guards patrolled the corridors, dogs prowled the gates. The intruders had been working for Ethan, confirmed by the IDs found on one of the bodies. Elena sat by the fire, cradling Mila, while Damien stood near the window, talking quietly into his phone. If he wants a war, he was saying, I'll give him one. But not here. Not near her. He ended the call and turned to her. His face was hard, but his eyes softened when they met hers. You shouldn't have been here alone tonight, he said. I thought you were gone, she whispered. I was supposed to be. But something told me to come back. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, studying the firelight dancing over her face. You see now, Elena? There's no more pretending. He won't stop until he destroys you. And now, he's come into my house. What will you do? What I should have done from the start, he said. End this. She looked at him, fear and exhaustion twisting inside her. End it how? He leaned forward, voice low. By making sure he can't touch anyone again. Her eyes widened. Damien, you can't. You think this man understands mercy? His tone was cold steel. He sent killers after you and your child. He doesn't want you back, he wants control. And I don't share. She swallowed hard, trying to find the right words. I don't want more blood because of me. Damien's gaze softened. Then let me carry that for you. The fire crackled, filling the silence between them. Then, quietly, she whispered, I'm scared of what you might become. He exhaled slowly. So am I. The next morning, sunlight broke through the clouds, pale and tired. The mansion smelled of coffee and gunpowder. Elena watched from the balcony as Damien spoke with his men below. Orders. Commands. Precision. He was calm now, but she could feel the storm brewing beneath his surface. Luca appeared beside her. He didn't sleep, he said. Neither did I, she replied. Luca glanced down at Damien. You changed him, you know. He doesn't usually care who gets hurt. But you. I didn't ask for this, she said quietly. No one ever does, Luca replied. But you might be the first thing that's made him human again. Elena didn't answer. She didn't know if that was a blessing or a curse. That evening, Damien came to her room. He looked calmer, but his eyes were dark with something heavier than anger, determination. I need to tell you something, he said. Elena set Mila's blanket aside. What is it? He motioned for her to sit. You deserve to know what kind of man is protecting you. Damien. No, he interrupted. You think you understand me, but you don't. And if you're going to stay here, if you're going to trust me, you need to know where all this began. He walked to the window, staring out at the dark horizon before speaking. My father was a monster. The kind of man who thought pain proved loyalty. He beat my mother until she couldn't stand. One night, she tried to run away with me. He found us. She didn't make it. I did. Elena's chest tightened. I'm so sorry. Don't be. That night, I learned something. Fear keeps you alive, but power keeps you safe. I built everything I have so no one could ever make me helpless again. He turned to her, his expression raw. But then you came here. And suddenly, I was that boy again, standing in the dark, watching someone I care about bleed. Tears stung her eyes. She whispered, you don't have to protect me out of guilt. It's not guilt, he said firmly. It's purpose. For the first time, I know what I'm fighting for. The silence between them was thick, filled with unspoken emotion. I'm not like your father, she said quietly. I won't let my fear control me anymore. He smiled faintly. Good. Because fear is exactly what men like Ethan feed on. Later that night, Damien's contacts sent him something that changed everything: photos, bank records, documents. He spread them out across his desk, calling Elena over. What is all this? She asked. Proof, he said. Ethan and his father aren't just abusers, they're criminals. They've been laundering money through charity fronts and construction bids for years. She blinked. How did you get these? Your ex made the mistake of hiring a hacker who owed me money. He handed her a USB drive. This is our weapon. Weapon? We're not hiding anymore, he said. We're going to expose them. But we'll do it my way. And what's your way? She asked softly. He met her eyes. Painful. Public. Permanent. Elena hesitated. If you do this, they'll come after you. Let them, he said. I've spent years being the monster they whispered about. Now I'll give them a reason to fear me. 2 days later, Damien arranged a meeting. Not with guns, but with silence and power. At a high-end restaurant downtown, he sat across from Richard Cole, Ethan's father. The older man looked confident, polished, and dangerous in his tailored suit. Mr. Moretti, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. To what do I owe the honor? You sent men into my house, Damien said calmly. That's an insult I can't ignore. Richard chuckled. You're overreacting. I don't control every fool who works for me. Maybe not. But I do control what happens next. He slid a folder across the table. Inside, photos, bank transfers, documents that could ruin the entire coal empire. Richard's smile vanished. Where did you get this? Doesn't matter. What matters is what I'll do with it. Richard's face hardened. You think you can threaten me? I have judges, senators. And I have the truth, Damien cut in. The kind that burns empires down. He leaned forward. You have two choices, disappear quietly, or watch me destroy everything you built. Either way, your son doesn't touch her again. Richard's jaw clenched. You'll regret this. No, Damien said softly. You will. He stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and walked out. Back at the mansion, Elena was waiting for him. She didn't need to ask what happened. She saw it in his eyes, victory mixed with danger. It's done, he said simply. But it won't end there. Ethan's too proud to back down. Elena nodded slowly. Then I'll face him. No, Damien said sharply. He's mine. He was mine first, she said quietly. Let me stand up to him. Just once. He stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. You're either brave or insane. Maybe both, she said, echoing his words from before. He smiled faintly. Then we'll do it together. That night, as the mansion settled into uneasy quiet, Elena stood at her window, watching lightning roll across the sky. Somewhere out there, Ethan Cole was plotting his next move. But for the first time, she didn't feel helpless. Behind her, Damien stood silently, watching her reflection in the glass. You know this will get worse before it gets better, he said softly. I know. You can still leave. I'll make sure you're safe. No, she said. If I keep running, I'll never stop. I want this to end. He nodded slowly, stepping closer. Then we end it together. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, everything else fell away, the past, the fear, the lies. Just two broken souls, standing on the edge of a storm, ready to fight for something bigger than both of them. And outside, thunder rolled again. Not as a warning this time, but as a promise. The city slept under a veil of mist that night. Neon lights flickered across the wet streets, the hum of distant traffic echoing through the silence. In the penthouse of the Moretti mansion, Damien stood by the window, his reflection dark and motionless against the glass. The war had begun only this time, he was pulling the strings. Behind him, Elena stood barefoot, wrapped in one of his shirts. She hadn't meant to wear it, it had been hanging over a chair, warm and soft, smelling faintly of his cologne. It made her feel safe, though the safety was an illusion. You haven't slept in 2 days, she said quietly. Neither have you, he replied, eyes still on the city. I can't rest until this is over. Elena moved closer. You said you had a plan. What kind of plan? He turned, the sharpness in his gaze softening slightly when he saw her. A trap. For Ethan. But it needs you. Her stomach tightened. Me? He won't stop until he gets close to you again. We'll let him think he's winning. You want to use me as bait. I want to end this, Damien said firmly. And the only way to do that is to draw him out where everyone can see who he really is. Elena stared at him, torn between fear and resolve. And if he hurts someone else in the process? Then I'll make sure it's the last thing he ever does. His words weren't loud, but they carried the weight of truth and death. The next day, the city buzzed with whispers of another grand charity gala hosted by none other than Damien Moretti and his fiancée, Elena. It was the perfect stage. Cameras. Witnesses. Public eyes. Elena stood before the mirror as Rosa, now her closest ally, helped her zip up a silver gown that shimmered under the light. You look like a queen, Rosa said softly. He won't know what hit him. Elena smiled faintly, but her hands trembled. That's the problem, Rosa. He always hits first. Downstairs, Damien waited in a black suit, crisp and tailored. When she entered, his gaze lingered longer than usual. You'll outshine the room, he said. I don't want to outshine anyone. I just want this to end. It will, he promised. She didn't know whether to believe him, but she wanted to. The gala was a world of glittering chandeliers and champagne laughter. The city's elite mingled like actors in a play, all smiles and secrets. Damien and Elena entered hand in hand, every camera flash following them like hungry eyes. She could feel the weight of the world pressing down, but Damien's grip was steady, grounding her. "He's here," he whispered as they posed for photos. Elena didn't need to ask who. She could feel it, the familiar chill crawling up her spine. She turned her head slightly, and there he was. Ethan Cole. He looked immaculate in his suit, his smile sharp as glass. But his eyes, cold, cruel, calculating, locked onto her like a predator spotting prey. He began moving toward them, each step measured. Damien's voice dropped low. "Don't look away. Let him come." Elena forced herself to breathe. She lifted her chin, meeting Ethan's gaze head-on. "Elena," he said when he reached them. His voice was silk over steel. "It's been too long." "Not long enough," she replied. Ethan smirked. "I see you've traded up." "You see what you want to see," Damien said evenly. "Oh, I see everything," Ethan murmured. A frightened little maid turned into a trophy. "Must be nice, Damien. Owning what used to be mine." The words sliced through the air. Gasps rippled among the crowd. Before Damien could respond, Elena did. "You never owned me, Ethan. You broke me. But you don't get to claim what you tried to destroy." Her voice shook, but it carried. Every camera turned toward her. Ethan's smile faltered. "Careful what you say. You'll regret embarrassing me. Like you regretted pushing a pregnant woman down the stairs." Damien's tone was soft, deadly soft. The crowd fell silent. Ethan froze. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I do," Damien said, pulling out his phone. A video flickered on the large screen above them, security footage from years ago, showing Ethan yelling, shoving, and finally striking her. Gasps filled the hall. Reporters raised their cameras. Ethan began, but Damien cut him off. "You wanted a stage," he said coldly. "Here it is." Ethan's face twisted. "You'll pay for this." "No," Damien said, stepping closer, his eyes dark. "You will." Security moved in, but Ethan pulled a gun from his jacket, pointing it straight at Damien. Screams erupted. Guests ducked. Elena's heart stopped. "You think you can ruin me?" Ethan snarled. "I'll end you right here." But Damien didn't flinch. His gaze was fixed, unshakable. "Do it," he said quietly. "And make the world see you for what you are." Ethan's hand trembled. The cameras were rolling. Dozens of witnesses. Then a shot. The sound cracked like thunder. Elena screamed, but it wasn't Damien who fell. It was Ethan. Blood bloomed on his shoulder. A guard, one of Damien's men, had fired first. Chaos broke out. Reporters swarmed, sirens wailed outside. Damien grabbed Elena's hand, pulling her through the crowd. "Come on," he hissed. "We're done here." Hours later, back at the mansion, the city's news was ablaze. Ethan Cole hospitalized after public altercation. Damien Moretti exposes billionaire abuse scandal. Elena sat on the couch, shaking. "You planned this, didn't you?" "I planned to end him," Damien said, pouring himself a drink. "The rest took care of itself." "You could have died," she said, her voice breaking. He looked at her over the rim of his glass. "So could you. That's why I don't lose." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want anyone else dying because of me." He set the glass down and came closer, kneeling before her. "No one died," he said softly. "Not this time. But it's over now. He's finished." She wanted to believe him. She really did. But deep down, she knew Ethan wasn't the kind of man who surrendered. And neither was Damien. The next few days were a blur of reporters, police investigations, and endless calls. Damien handled it all with icy precision. To the world, he was untouchable. To Elena, he was a storm barely contained. One evening, she found him alone in his office, staring at a document spread across his desk, Ethan's confession, signed and sealed. He's being transferred to federal custody, Damien said. His father's empire is collapsing. They're finished. So it's really over, she whispered. Almost. She frowned. Almost. There's still one thing left to do. He looked up, and his expression softened. You can go, Elena. You and Mila. You don't need to stay here anymore. Her breath caught. You're sending me away? No, he said. I'm giving you your freedom back. The words should have made her happy, but they didn't. They felt like loss. I don't know where I'd even go, she said quietly. Anywhere, he said. Anywhere that isn't trapped behind my shadow. He stood and walked toward the window, his hands in his pockets. I promised to protect you. I didn't promise to keep you. Tears welled in her eyes. Is that what this was? A transaction? He turned sharply. Don't do that. Do what? Pretend you don't know what this became. The silence between them was thick with everything unsaid. Finally, she whispered, then say it. He took a step closer. Say what? Whatever it is you won't admit. He stared at her, his jaw tightening. Then, in a voice that trembled with something raw and real, he said, You made me feel again. And that terrifies me. Her tears fell freely now. Then stop fighting it. He shook his head. You don't understand. Men like me don't get happy endings. We destroy what we touch. She walked up to him, her hand brushing his chest. Then maybe it's time you learned how to hold instead of destroy. He caught her wrist, his touch firm but trembling. Elena. Damien, she whispered. You saved me. But somewhere along the way, I think I saved you too. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air between them burned with tension, emotion, truth. Then Damien let go of her wrist only to cup her face instead. I swore I'd never need anyone, he murmured. But God help me, I need you. Their lips met, slow, hesitant, then hungry, desperate. Every wall he'd built shattered in that single moment. When they finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. If I had my way, he whispered, I'd lock you here forever just to keep you safe. Then don't lock me, she said softly. Stay beside me instead. He smiled faintly. That sounds dangerously close to happiness. Maybe it's time you tried it. Later that night, Damien took her to the rooftop garden, the place he never let anyone go. The city lights stretched endlessly below, like 1,000 scattered stars. When my mother was alive, he said, she used to bring me up here. Said the world looks smaller from above, easier to face. Elena smiled. She was right. He turned to her. You know what I see when I look down now? What? Everything I'd burn if anyone ever tried to take you away again. Her breath hitched. Damien. He pulled a small box from his pocket, the same one that had once held the fake engagement ring. But this time, the ring inside was different, simple, golden, real. This isn't a lie, he said quietly. No deals. No protection. Just me asking. Tears blurred her vision. You mean? Marry me, he said. For real, this time. Elena's lips trembled. After everything we've been through? Because of everything we've been through. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Yes. He smiled, a rare, genuine smile that reached his eyes. As he slid the ring onto her finger, thunder rolled in the distance again, not as a threat this time, but as applause from the heavens. He kissed her hand and whispered, I'm no saint, Elena. I'm the devil they fear. But for you, I'll be whatever you need me to be. And under the city's restless sky, the man who once ruled through fear finally found peace, not in power, not in revenge, but in the arms of the woman who had tamed his fire without ever trying to. The morning after Damien's proposal, the city woke up to chaos. Every headline screamed his name, every station replayed the footage of Ethan being escorted out of the gala in handcuffs. Cole dynasty collapses under scandal. Ethan Cole faces federal charges. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, her fingers absently brushing over the new gold ring on her hand. It still didn't feel real that after everything, she was here, safe, and loved. But the peace was fragile. Too fragile. The door opened softly. Damien stepped in, phone in hand, expression unreadable. "It's done," he said simply. "The FBI took Ethan into custody an hour ago. His father's company is under investigation." Elena exhaled slowly, relief mixing with disbelief. "It's really over." He walked closer, his eyes still sharp despite the calm tone. "For him? Yes. For us, not yet." She frowned. "What do you mean?" Damien sat beside her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "Men like Richard Cole don't go down quietly. He'll try to salvage what he can. He might even try to make a deal." Elena's voice trembled. "A deal with you? With anyone? The man's a viper. But his power's slipping, and snakes without venom are desperate." He turned to her, voice lowering. "That's why, from now on, you don't leave the house without me." She smiled faintly. "That sounds more like an order than a request." "It's both," he said, but there was warmth in his tone now. "You've seen what happens when I'm not around." She placed her hand gently over his. "You can't protect me from everything, Damien." He looked down at their joined hands, then met her gaze again. "Maybe not. But I'll die trying." By midday, the mansion was alive with movement. Guards changed shifts, phones rang nonstop, and Luca moved through the chaos with his usual calm efficiency. Elena stood by the balcony, watching Damien bark quiet orders into his earpiece. His voice was low, but it carried authority, the kind that made everyone around him listen. "Lock down the docks," he said. "No one moves money in or out without my word. And tell our people in Washington if Richard tries to play politics, I want to know before he breathes." When he hung up, he found Elena watching him. "You don't have to do all this," she said softly. "Don't I?" he replied. "You think the Coles will forgive what we did to them?" "We didn't do anything wrong," she said. "We told the truth." He smiled, a dark, weary smile. "Truth doesn't matter to men who live in shadows." That night, Damien received a message that froze the room's air. A photo appeared on his phone, blurry, grainy, but clear enough. Elena's old apartment building. The same one she had escaped from months ago. And painted across the wall in red letters. "You think this ends with me?" Elena's hands shook when she saw it. "He's still out there." Damien clenched his jaw. "No. He's trying to scare you from inside his cage." "But how could he?" "He's not doing it himself," Damien said coldly. "Someone's doing it for him." He called Luca instantly. "I want names. Everyone connected to Ethan Cole. Family, friends, anyone who owes him a favor. Find who did this." "Already on it, boss," Luca replied. Hours passed. The mansion felt like a war bunker, lights dimmed, guards stationed at every door. Elena sat in the nursery, watching Mila sleep, her heart aching with both love and fear. She didn't hear Damien enter until he was standing beside her. "She sleeps peacefully," he murmured. "She doesn't know what fear feels like yet," Elena whispered. "I hope she never has to." Damien's voice was softer now. "She won't. I promise." Elena turned to him, her eyes glistening. "Don't make promises you can't keep." He smiled faintly. "I only make promises I intend to keep." They stood there in silence, watching Mila's tiny chest rise and fall. Outside, rain began to fall again, slow, steady, cleansing. The next morning brought news Damien had been waiting for. Luca walked into the office with a grim look. "We found him," he said. "One of Ethan's men. He's hiding in an old warehouse near the river." Damien stood immediately. "Let's go." "Boss, wait," Luca said. "This could be a setup." "Everything's a setup," Damien replied. "That's why we win. Because we're the only ones ready for it." He grabbed his coat, kissed Elena's forehead, and said quietly, "Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me." She gripped his hand. "Be careful." He smiled, small, but real. "I'll come back. I always do." The warehouse stank of rust and old secrets. Rain dripped through cracks in the ceiling, echoing in the silence. Damien and his men moved through the shadows, guns drawn. A figure appeared, trembling, desperate, clutching a phone. "Don't shoot. Please," the man begged. Damien's voice was calm. "Who sent you?" "It was Cole." He made me do it. He said if I didn't scare her, he'd kill me. Where is he now? Hospital. But he's still giving orders. He's got people everywhere. The man's words ended in a scream. A shot rang out, clean and distant. A sniper. Damien ducked, motioning to his men. Get down. Bullets shattered the windows. The air filled with smoke and glass. Damien's men returned fire, the warehouse shaking under the assault. When the noise finally stopped, Damien rose slowly, scanning the scene. The shooter was gone. But in the chaos, the message had been delivered. Ethan still had reach. And the war wasn't over. Later that night, Damien returned home, blood on his sleeve, exhaustion in his eyes. Elena rushed to him, checking for injuries. You're hurt. It's nothing, he said. Not mine. Damien, please. He caught her hands. Listen to me. He's losing control. That makes him more dangerous. But it also means he's desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. And you're planning to make him pay for his. I'm planning to make sure he never hurts anyone again. His tone was calm, but the darkness beneath it scared her. You're not your father, she said softly. Don't become what he was. He froze. For a moment, something broke in his eyes. Then he whispered, if I have to become the devil to protect you, then I'll gladly wear his crown. Days passed. The city still buzzed with scandal, but the noise was beginning to fade. Ethan's father had gone silent, retreating into his wealth and lawyers. The coal empire was crumbling. And in the mansion, for the first time in months, there was peace. Elena woke to sunlight filtering through sheer curtains, the air warm and quiet. For a moment, she almost forgot what danger felt like. Damien sat by the window, shirt unbuttoned, coffee cup in hand. He looked younger, softer, like a man finally at rest. You're awake, he said. You didn't sleep again, she murmured. I don't sleep much, he said. Too many ghosts. She stood, wrapping a robe around herself, and walked to him. Then maybe it's time you stopped fighting them. He looked at her for a long moment. You think I can? I think you already are. He smiled faintly. You always say things like that, like you actually believe there's still something good left in me. Because there is, she said. You just keep it buried under all that armor. He set his coffee down, took her hand, and pressed it to his chest. Then why do you stay? He asked quietly. You've seen what I am. You've seen what I can do. Her eyes softened. Because underneath it all, I've seen who you really are. And who's that? The man who never stopped trying to save people even when he didn't think he could be saved himself. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, slowly, his hands came up to cradle her face. You shouldn't love me, Elena. But I do. He closed his eyes. Then I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. That afternoon, a letter arrived, an official summons for Elena to testify in court. Ethan was pressing charges, trying to claim his innocence. Elena's hands trembled as she read it. I can't do this. Damien took the paper, read it once, and said, You can. And you will. You're not his victim anymore. What if they don't believe me? Then I'll make them. She smiled through her tears. You can't threaten the entire courtroom. Watch me. Despite herself, she laughed, a real laugh, one that filled the room like light. The trial was short. The evidence was overwhelming. Elena's testimony, backed by the video and documents Damien had collected, sealed Ethan's fate. The judge's verdict echoed through the room, guilty on all counts. Ethan stared at her as they led him away, his face pale and twisted with hatred. You'll regret this, he hissed. He'll ruin you. Elena met his eyes calmly. He already saved me. Back at the mansion, Damien waited in the courtyard. When she stepped out of the car, he knew from her expression that it was over. It's done, she said softly. He smiled, the rare, quiet kind that made the corners of his eyes crease. Then so is he. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. It's really over. He reached for her hand. Then let's stop living in the past. That evening, the mansion was quiet again. No guards rushing, no threats, no fear. Just the sound of rain outside and the crackle of the fire inside. Elena sat curled beside Damien on the couch, his arm around her, Mila asleep upstairs. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" she asked softly. "All the time," he said. "And what do you see?" He looked down at her. "You. Ha. A life that doesn't need violence to feel safe." She smiled faintly. "You really think that's possible? If you believe in me, then yes. I always have." He kissed her forehead, whispering, "Then that's enough." The night deepened, and for once, Damien Moretti didn't feel like the devil everyone feared. He felt like a man who had finally found his heaven not in power, but in peace. And as Elena drifted to sleep beside him, the storm that had haunted them both for so long finally passed, leaving behind only quiet and the promise of forever. The days that followed the trial passed like a blur. The world finally stopped watching them. Reporters moved on to new scandals, and the Cole family's name faded from headlines, buried under their shame. For the first time in years, Elena could walk outside without looking over her shoulder. She could laugh without fear of who might be listening. And for Damien, that was the real victory, not the headlines, not the power, but the peace he saw in her smile. The mansion itself felt different now. Brighter. Softer. The guards relaxed, the hallways no longer echoed with tension. Flowers bloomed in the courtyard again. Mila's laughter filled the house like sunlight. But even peace has ghosts. Late one evening, Elena found Damien in his office. The lights were low, the air heavy with the scent of whiskey and smoke. He sat behind his desk, staring at the old portrait of his mother on the wall. "You never drink this late," she said gently, stepping in. He didn't look up. "Some nights, I remember too much." She moved closer, her bare feet silent on the marble. "Tell me." He turned the glass in his hand, watching the amber swirl inside it. "You ever wonder what makes a man like me who he is?" "I already know," she said softly. "Pain. Survival. Guilt." He gave a faint smile. "You make it sound poetic." "It's not poetry. It's truth." He set the glass down and looked at her, really looked at her. "The night my mother died, I swore I'd never need anyone again. Love, family, mercy, all of it felt like weakness. And now?" she asked quietly. He rose from his chair and crossed the room, stopping just inches away. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Now I need you more than I need air." Elena's breath caught. "Damien. You broke every wall I built. You made me remember what it feels like to care, to want something that isn't control." He paused, his voice trembling just slightly. "And it terrifies me, because I don't know how to love without ruining it." She reached up, her fingers brushing his jaw. "Then don't ruin it. Learn it." He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not," she said. "But nothing worth keeping ever is." When he opened his eyes again, something in them had changed, the darkness had softened, replaced by something warm, human. "I used to think I was destined to die alone," he murmured. "But now, I think I was just waiting for you." Her heart ached at the honesty in his tone. She rested her forehead against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "You're not that man anymore," she whispered. "You're the man who saved me, Damien. You saved us both." He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, his voice low against her hair. "Then promise me something. Anything. If one day I forget who I am, remind me that I was once good enough for you." She looked up at him, tears shining in her eyes. "You always will be." Weeks passed, and life began to feel ordinary again, the kind of ordinary Elena had dreamed of but never thought she'd have. Mornings were slow, filled with laughter and coffee. Mila toddled around the garden, chasing butterflies. Damien often joined them, his cold exterior melting into quiet warmth whenever his daughter by choice reached for his hand. One afternoon, Elena found him teaching Mila how to hold a flower gently. "Not too tight," he said. "If you crush it, it'll die." Mila giggled, clutching the stem awkwardly. Elena watched from the terrace, smiling through tears. She never imagined that the feared mafia boss, the man who once ruled with fire and blood, would one day kneel in the grass, teaching a little girl about gentleness. When he saw Elena, he stood and walked toward her, brushing dirt from his hands. "You're staring," he teased. Just memorizing the moment, she said with a grin. He raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I want to remember what happiness looks like. He reached for her hand. Then remember this too. He pulled her close and kissed her, slow, steady, unhurried. The kind of kiss that said everything words never could. That night, after Mila had fallen asleep, Damien led Elena to the rooftop garden. The city shimmered below, a sea of lights stretching into infinity. Do you remember the first night we met? He asked. She laughed softly. How could I forget? You scared me half to death. You were in my dining room, holding a rag like a shield. And you were the devil himself, she said, teasingly. He smiled, shaking his head. Maybe I was. But you were the only one who ever looked at me like I could be more. That's because I always saw the man, not the monster. He fell silent for a moment, then said quietly, I never told you this, but that night when I saw you standing there, trembling but refusing to bow, I knew you'd change everything. Elena's heart swelled. And you did the same for me. You taught me that love doesn't have to hurt. He took her face in his hands. I love you, Elena. More than I ever thought possible. And I don't want to wait anymore. Before she could respond, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document, simple, elegant, marked with gold ink. What's this? She asked. A marriage license, he said. Signed. Sealed. Waiting for one name. Tears filled her eyes. Damien. No more pretending. No more arrangements. No more fear. I want you, my name beside yours, my life tied to yours. Not because you need protection. Because I can't imagine this world without you in it. Her hands trembled as she took the pen he offered. She signed her name beside his, her heart racing. He smiled, the most genuine she had ever seen. Then it's done. He lifted her into his arms, spinning her once before kissing her deeply under the night sky. The city lights sparkled around them, and for the first time, Damien Moretti, the man who once ruled by fear, felt truly free. The wedding was small, quiet, and private, exactly how Elena wanted it. No reporters. No cameras. Just a few trusted friends, Luca as best man, and Mila tossing flower petals down the garden path. Elena wore a simple white dress that brushed the grass as she walked. Damien stood waiting at the altar, dressed in black, the morning light turning his eyes soft and warm. When she reached him, he took her hands, his thumb brushing the gold ring that symbolized how far they'd come. You look like a dream, he murmured. And you look like a man who can finally breathe. He smiled faintly. That's because I can. The officiant began to speak, but neither of them heard much. Their eyes never left each other. When it came time for the vows, Damien didn't read from paper. He spoke from the heart. Elena, when I met you, I was a man made of anger and scars. You didn't just walk into my life, you broke into it. You looked at the parts of me I hated most and called them human. You gave me peace I didn't know existed. From this day forward, I promise you'll never face fear alone. Not as long as I draw breath. Elena's tears shimmered under the sunlight. When it was her turn, she took a trembling breath. Damien, I once thought love was something that hurt, something that chained and broke me. But you showed me that real love protects, it heals, and it forgives. You became the safest place I've ever known. I promise to stand beside you, through darkness and light, through storms and silence, until the end of everything. Damien swallowed hard, his jaw tight with emotion. You're going to ruin my reputation, he murmured, voice thick. Good, she whispered. You needed ruining. Laughter rippled through the small crowd. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, Damien didn't wait. He kissed her like the world itself had stopped turning, like every battle, every scar, every drop of blood had led him to this one moment. Applause filled the garden. Mila clapped excitedly, shouting, Mama pretty, Papa happy. They both laughed through tears. That night, after the guests were gone and the stars blanketed the sky, Damien and Elena sat together on the balcony. Below them, the city glowed alive, endless, peaceful. You ever think about what comes next? She asked softly. Every day, he said. But for once, I don't have to plan it. I just want to live it. She leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder. You think we'll ever forget what we've been through? He shook his head. No. But we'll learn to live with it. Pain teaches us what to protect. She smiled. And what's that for you? He looked at her, really looked, and said, you. And her. Elena closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his voice sink into her. Then promise me something. Anything. Promise that no matter what happens, we won't become the people we were running from. He took her hand, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. I promise. They sat there for a long time, the world quiet around them. The wind carried the scent of jasmine and rain, and for the first time, the mansion didn't feel like a fortress, it felt like home. Damien glanced down at her and whispered, You turned my war into peace.